Paltrocast. Aside from having to talk to me, Austin, how is your day going so far?
Great. I've talked to a few people. It's still a little early, but it's a more normal hour than 7:30.
I hear you.
So
Are you still
9:30 is I'm up already.
Well, that was going to be actually my first question right there. I know that you have Brooklyn roots, New York roots. Do you go between New York and LA these days, or are you fully in LA?
I went back and forth to New York for the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel last year. But I'm based in LA. I have been since about 2005. So coming in on my 20th anniversary, in it should be 2025, early 2025. And that's crazy that I've been out here almost 20 years.
Yeah, most people do not make it in LA for 20 years, to say the least. So you mentioned Mrs. Maisel. The wife and I finished the screeners like 3, 4 weeks ago, and we saw a lot of Alvin in the last 2 seasons without spoiling anything right there. I know you've been in the writer's room because you do have writing credits and all that. Did you have to do a lot of prep for this role for Mrs. Maisel?
Well, usually you don't get too much time with audition material as an actor, especially when have to put on a self-tape and do it yourself. And you actually got less time when you went in the room because you didn't have to do that other stuff. They give you maybe another day sometimes to actually tape it and record it yourself and send it in. So the other, for that, I luckily had a weekend. Sometimes you get lucky and it's not in the middle of the week. You have the Saturday and Sunday to really invest the time and take, do the work on the script, but also figure out what the world of a writer's room in 1960, 61 would have been like. And so part of my preparation, besides memorizing, it was like 5 scenes on the first audition and 8 scenes on the callback. And
yeah,
my character talks a lot and is involved in most of the dialogue. So, we're talking about like 15, 20 pages of material, which is longer than usual. Besides that, I was able to kind of like wind down and kind of process that with watching interviews of like people like Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks. And there was this great PBS special called Sid's Writers, I think it's called.
Oh yeah.
Where it was a fundraiser where they gathered in the 80s or 90s. It was probably like a 25 year anniversary, 30th anniversary for the writer's room on Sid Caesar, which in the
Mel
context
Brooks,
of
Carl
Maisel,
Reiner, yeah,
right, Alvin had worked in. He's a fictitious character who was supposed to be in that room. And so he'd worked with Neil Simon, Woody Allen, Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner. The head writer of Sid Caesar was Mel Tolkien. So, I was lucky also to figure out that around the same time, the Gordon Ford show and the Maisel world I was stepping into, that was the first year or years of the Dick Van Dyke show, of which Carl Reiner created. Initially the pilot, if you look on YouTube, is with Carl Reiner. I think it's called something else, but if you look, the pilot for the Dick Van Dyke show, and they were like, we need a star in the main role. And so he wound up becoming a character in the story, but he wrote pretty much every episode. And they actually had a lady in that writer's room. They had a lady in Sid Caesar's writer's room. So it was kind of like getting the experience of what it was like then. I have a lot of writer friends, and my writer's room is more of a writer's group. I have 2 co-writers, a guy named Josh Taub and Dave Malbeck, and we write a lot of stuff together. We used to write in New York, sketch comedy, and we've written a couple web series and comic books. And so that is my understanding of it, and knowing from being a regular on shows, to step into the writer's room, to see the board with all the episodes and the breakdown, and a little different on a late night talk show. And I happen to know a couple of people that did that. So really it was about the period and what the writers were like in the period, not the writers I know present day who write on TV shows, not late night talk shows.
Yeah, it's a very different look from, did you see the Hulu show called Reboot that recently
Loved it. Yes, yes.
that's it's almost like the Maisel people knew what the perspective was going to be
Yeah.
for crafting that. But either way, it's very interesting how historically accurate a lot of that was with the writers' room. And I'm going to give kudos to you because of the hundreds of comedians I've interviewed. I think you're the first one to ever say Sid Caesar in an interview that I've done. Sid
Really?
Caesar's name doesn't come up, but where would comedy be without Sid Caesar having existed and giving it the start to Brooks and Reiner and all that?
Yeah, I think he really took the Borscht Belt comedy team sketch, skit thing or shtick thing into a more formatted TV presentation. And, the idea that it was, I don't think those episodes were taped. I think they were live to tape,
Yes.
And so not only did you have a combination of like, a Mad TV and an SNL, but you had guys, if you look at the writers' room he assembled, legends have been written about that. And every one of those guys in that room, even the ones that you might not be familiar with their names, went on to write MASH, and shows like, or like Broadway shows like Brighton Beach Memoirs and
Neil Simon,
Broadway Bound and Biloxi Blues, like just it's unfortunately at that time it was just all white guys and one white lady, but nowadays, like you'd see on Reboot, you have the old school writers and the younger writers. I'm so sorry that show didn't get picked up. I really like that show.
I'm not holding out. Well, I am holding out hope because in this day and age, what show gets canceled and it's a death blow permanently? Like, once Arrested Development could come back and then Gilmore Girls could come back, you just go, oh, it's just one cancellation. They're going to get 3 more, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or whatever.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, totally.
So, hey, this is not the Reboot interview. This is the Austin interview and Mrs. Maisel and all that. So, did you spend most of your life before Binghamton in Brooklyn?
Yeah, and then after that, I moved back to Brooklyn for grad school and the years after, like pounding the pavement as a fresh young actor out of school, trying to make a living and make his way and build a career. Yeah. So like Brooklyn, from like 0 to 18, and then upstate New York. Even in New York, it was kind of like just north of the Catskills, north and west of the Catskills. I went to college and then came back and went to college, grad school in the city at the Actors Studio Drama School.
So you're the one Brooklyn person who came back, and I say that because Larry King didn't come back. Adam Richman, I don't think came back. Jimmy Kimmel, well, they went to Vegas, but he never came back to Brooklyn. Sandler didn't come back to Brooklyn, but you did.
Yes, and I went back to Brooklyn last year to do the Maisel, and that was quite fun because of just, doing the show and also being able to see everyone. Again, all my friends that still live in Brooklyn that haven't left, for good. But that happens. It's like, the funniest thing about growing up in New York and Brooklyn is that most of the people are from there, right? Mm-hmm. And then as you get older, like the professionals are mostly not from like especially in acting and the creative arts. And in LA, it's most of the people aren't from LA. Like most of the people have come to LA with $1 and a dream or a hope and a dream, whether it's music or a film or acting
or Dice Clay.
Right. Exactly. It's funny. Adam Richman, Man vs. Food. Yeah. We went to the same high school, possibly at the same time.
The same yeshiva high school?
Oh no, Midwood High School. No. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he went to Midwood and was probably in the Sing, because I used to do Sing, which is like a production competition in New York. Like each grade competes against each other. I think he did that he was a senior, I was a freshman, I think.
He's one of those people. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Adam, like yourself, total historian outside of his chosen profession. Like if you talk to Adam Richman about Van Halen or sports or anything like that, knows everything. And I get those vibes from you as well, Austin.
Yeah, it's funny you're wearing the Beach Boys, a Beach Boys t-shirt. I became a fan of the Beach Boys before I moved to LA. When I was doing my grad school thesis, it happened to be a play by John Patrick Shanley, and he grew up in the Bronx, writes a lot of New York-based dramas. He wrote Doubt, that the movie. He wrote Moonstruck. So very New York centric themes, but in that play, Beggars in the House of Plenty, the character, and I think Shanley himself were huge fans of the Beach Boys. So a lot of my listening during that time to music was the best of the Beach Boys. We used a couple songs for the show. And even, to cut to last year when I was doing Maisel, it's hard to stay in the 1960s and, cut out and watch Survivor or like Top Chef or, some of the things nowadays, like sports even. But occasionally I would listen or watch old school, like Ed Sullivan. Ed Sullivan was after that, but, Dick Van Dyke Show episodes, or there was a couple like Car 54, Where Are You? Yeah. It was that first season was the season that there's posters in the hallway at the Gordon Ford show of Car 54 and Gunsmoke, and like to totally tune in to like be in the mindset of like what Alvin would do when he got home from work, besides drink at Toot Shores.
Yeah, well, the Alvin character is just very interesting, and I don't want to give too much away because you can't assume that everyone has finished the season or the show or anything like that. But I say it's a great job, an authentic look at everything, etc. So, new show to the general public, old show to you. Are you allowed to say what's next, where we can look for you next, or is it all under Hollywood Reporter and Variety embargoes? And just wait and see and check the Instagram.
Well, I mean, we're 2 days away from the series finale. So once that happens, I could say anything, but I think, like when it comes to my character storyline and my arc, it doesn't necessarily affect the main, obviously we were impacted by having a lady writer, it's probably like every character's.
But I mean you, Austin Basis here.
Austin Basis.
What's coming up for you next?
Oh, okay. Then I there's no embargo. I while I was doing Maisel and a little before, because of the pandemic and limited productions, I got involved with a lot of like short films and independent films. And the next short film that I did, that I was the main character, just recently premiered at the Pasadena Film Festival. And was nominated for Best Short. And then hopefully some more festivals down the line. And then a project called Daruma, that's a feature-length film about two characters with disabilities that go on a road trip. It's one of the first times, if not the first time, the two main people in the story have disabilities, are actors with disabilities, that were used to create this storyline. So one is a quadriplegic and he can't drive, so he needs his neighbor who happens to have who had an accident where he lost his hand, so he has hooks, and so he has to drive, and so this is like just an insight of characters whose lives and worlds and the story doesn't depend on their disability but has been directly affected by it. I was lucky enough to play a character in that'll premiere next month, in June. at the it's called Dances with Films. It's a
Mhm.
Hollywood film festival at the Chinese Theater, which is always fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's another film that I did another part called The Last Take, and that should be coming to festival soon. It's a story about old Hollywood's closeted world and very conservative world of kind of trying to marry off people that were not heterosexual, that were like LGBTQ, and that personal toll and damage it did to those celebrities. There are famous stories about it. It's kind of influenced by some, famous stories that of people that are now known to be, gay and had to stay in the closet to, keep a career in Hollywood.
Not just Shy Baldwin.
No, right. Exactly. And this was in like the 30s and 40s. So, it's a period piece that kind of fluctuates back and forth between the 30s and the 60s or 50s. So you see these young men as up and coming Hollywood stars and their love and affection for each other, and how that was, trampled upon and hid away and shut down, and they were married off, and how that affected their world years later when they reconnect as adults, as like middle-aged men. And so very poignant, true, based on true story, and just an important story to tell when you're talking about the golden era of Hollywood, that it wasn't so golden.
Right. Well said. Well, it's great to see that in your filmography that you could do the superhero stuff, you could do the Nickelodeon stuff, you could do Maisel and the period pieces, you could be on Curb Your Enthusiasm, etc. So really looking forward to whatever's coming from you in the near future, whether you're the writer, you're on camera, etc. Austin.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I was gonna quote the Beach Boys, but I couldn't come up with
Don't worry, baby.
Yes.
Hang on.
I may not always love you as
Well,
long
whatever
as
it
there are
is.
stars above you. Yeah, there you go.
We'll clear publishing on that.
Yes,
Thank you.
it's only
Austin.
2 lines, so it's clear.
Paltrocast.